All right, welcome, guys. This is going to be an episode of Rude's Corner, also call it Talkshop with Rude. Joining me today will also be Curtis, or also known as Tseng. And then we have Devin Welzbacher on the episode today, a special guest here. He definitely does a lot for the community. I mean, him and his family also helped out with FFDex. I mean, I believe they run it. Is that right?
Yeah, my brother is the designer and brother-in-law is the developer of the site.
Yeah. So you're just the Welzbacher name is involved.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have. I beg your pardon.
I was just saying, I certainly advise and kind of give pointers here and there, but
No, I mean, we definitely wanted to get an interview with you. I mean, you've had quite a bit of accomplishments in the Final Fantasy community. I mean, we'll get to talking about your experience a little bit when you how you did at Nats, making it to Worlds eventually, and then the biggest thing that why I wanted to get you on here was your Gen Con experience. I mean, that's blew me away. I was super surprised on what the deck you were running did and how you guys piloted it. But let's go ahead and not everyone knows you here, so let's go ahead and get to know a little bit about yourself. Tell us who you are and what you've done for the community so far and how your locals is.
So for the guys that don't know me, I'm Devin. I live in Toledo, Ohio. For anyone listening in from the Ohio area, we play locally at Checkmate games on Mondays and Frogtown Hobbies on Tuesdays. The local scene right now is about 4 regulars that can jump up to about 8 to 10 people on a good day.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good. It's pretty good size crowd.
Have you guys been playing since like the start of the game or anything like that?
I started early on, just kind of buying singles when the game first came out. Got guys locally involved around Opus 3.
Okay. Now, I mean, why Final Fantasy? What got you playing this game?
Originally, just the characters and everything. Like, big fan of Final Fantasy series and really just Square Enix games, RPGs in general. And coming from a Magic background, the game was very familiar to me. And honestly, I loved it from the beginning. I played it thinking it was immediately better than Magic as far as I kind of jumped to explaining the resource mechanics of the game and why I like it better than Magic due to that. You don't get, land screwed and everything. And you always have something to do with the way the resources work in this game.
Yeah, and spoke to a lot of Magic players that transition to Final Fantasy 2, and they usually say the very same exact thing. They're always, impressed with the game, how they can literally do anything. You're not like, landlocked, just like you said, because that's very frustrating, especially when I played Magic for a little bit. Like, just not being able to do anything just because you drew the wrong card is just not very fun at all.
Yeah.
But also, so you have your Magic background, of course. A lot of players that are good at Magic wind up coming into this and do very well here. But now, one other thing that I did want to find out about you is what's your favorite Final Fantasy?
Probably 7. It's a little bandwagon, but
it is what it is. It is what it is.
I did enjoy the expansions that came with that game and everything, like through Crisis Core. Like Zack's probably my favorite character in the series.
At least that's a different response.
I'm always looking to build with Legend Zack, looking for him to make a comeback, but
you can only wish. You can only wish. Now, I mean, you have quite a bit of accomplishments under your belt, and we kind of want to talk about those. I mean, you went to Nats and you placed in top 4, qualifying for Worlds. So, I mean, how did that go? I mean, how was your Nats experience before making it to Top Cut and making it all the way over there?
The Nats experience was very little sleep, very much a last-minute deck editing, but ended up, this was Opus 3 format. I played Mono Water, which was a big deck back then.
Yep.
Did very well with a 0 Sildra version. Most people were on Sildras, but I was like just strictly going for the kind of board fill with a Titus idea to it. Legend Titus, so like lots of forwards in play, Cagnazo and all that. So worked out for me there. carried that deck over with me to Worlds along with Mono Lightning and Toby's Ice Earth, which the world champion Toby ended up winning with those 3 deck options as well.
He plays those 3 decks too?
We played probably just didn't play as well as the other guys, but it was a great experience. Like, Square Enix treated us so well during the first Worlds Championship, and definitely hope to make it back this year.
And that was like an all expense paid trip, right?
Yeah, they paid for our food, stay, everything, and even kind of treated us to some of the tour stuff to do there in Tokyo as well.
Oh wow,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we did some tours. Honestly, the food they treated us to was like top of the line, and it was just awesome.
Oh man, did you guys get any like Kobe beef or anything like that?
Yeah, we did a couple of like kind of, I don't know what you call it over there, but back here it's kind of Korean barbecue where cooking.
Yeah.
Did a lot of those options, and also a place where we caught our own fish and cooked. Handed them off to a chef, and they cooked them however we'd like. So sushi, fried, however you mentioned, but you could catch them like right off this giant boat inside of this restaurant.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That was probably my favorite experience. That was one of the big dinners with the whole group that was there. So everyone competing, and then all the designers as well. So that was a fun night.
It sounds like it was definitely a blast. Now, one thing at this point that I kind of want to get into, which is the biggest reason why I wanted to get a hold of you. I mean, I was watching a bunch of videos of Gen Con. I can't believe I'm not there. It looks so much fun. And I actually started watching top stream it was your match against Okimoto. And then I was like, all right, Okimoto's on Ice Water Vikings. I know what this deck does. What the hell is he on? Like, what's going on with that? And so then from there, I was glued to the stream until it was done. Pretty much, you got me stuck watching that because I was just trying to figure out what the hell you were playing. Which
I
is
think a
kind
lot
of
of my opponents were trying to figure that out as the game was going on too, which was definitely a benefit to the deck.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure. People were expecting Ice Water Vikings. People were expecting Turbo Discard. Nobody was expecting that. Nobody. But the biggest thing I want to talk to you about was Gen Con. So how are your matches? I mean, what did you play in Swiss, and then how are your top cut like?
Swiss was a lot of Mono Lightning and Scions. Ended up playing some Mono Ice as well. So those were kind of the 3 decks I was looking out for. Definitely made sure I was testing against those decks going into Gen Con. And there were some mistakes during Swiss for me, for sure. I was on like 2 hours of sleep that day.
Oh, man.
I think the most notable mistake during Swiss is I let 2 Estinians be on board against me for like 3 turns.
Oh man!
What?
Now, were they like the same 5-drop, or were they like a 5-drop and a 3-drop?
The 3 and the 5.
Oh, okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, funny, I didn't notice until.
Did you take points of damage throughout this?
What's that?
Did you take any points of damage while they were both on the board?
I believe I was taking some hits from the 5-drop.
What did they do with the board state after you caught it?
Honestly, I didn't catch it. A judge did and moved them both to the break zone.
Oh wow! Okay,
Wow.
that's one way to deal with it.
Wow, that is a pretty rough thing to come back from. Yeah, he lost that match. Yeah, he lost that match. And then as far as top cut, I mean, how did you experience your top cut? Are any matches that stood out to you that you kind of know detail on what went on and what decisions or what kind of hard spots you were in at the match?
The featured match playing Okimoto was definitely a highlight of the tournament for me. I kind of pictured myself playing him before even going into Gen Con and everything. So getting to compete against him and in the best of 3 and coming out on top of it was definitely a highlight. I did practice versus the Ice Water matchup a whole lot. It was actually one of the other decks I brewed very early on in Opus 6 and kind of pitted this against my version of that one very often.
Did you know he was going into
practicing.
this with that?
No, I did not know he was playing that, but I figured it'd be popular with it being one of the first decks I brewed, and then seeing tournament success with Chris Matiski early on, so I knew people would be kind of jumping on that.
I mean, the Viking Layla is just bonkers. The value is just there.
Yes.
The value is just there. It's anybody who says that Layla is not a good card, just stop. There's no need to just
like
speak
playing 2 boards
nonsense
for free, basically.
And yeah, pretty much, yeah. Because after the Vikings gone, you it paid for itself pretty much. Especially when you get to pitch the Viking for the Layla, it's just Valley City at that point. Now, what made you want to come up with the FF2 deck? I mean, what were your ideas behind it?
Really just wanted to see the power of the new cards, so I started brewing FF2 3-color very early on, before even the full spoiler was out, and tried it out on Octagon with people who were willing to test Opus 6 early. I was not enjoying it. There's just no way to pull value out of those cards quite yet. And so I started working with Icewater, as I mentioned, another very early Opus 6 deck I constructed, which just using the power of Renoa when that spoiler was out, with things like Cloud of Darkness and Legend Kefka. But yeah, there were a lot of opportunities with Renoa that I was also testing. But once the Sid 2 was released with the full spoiler, came back to FF2 and really started to make it work there. I started with Fire Wind Sid 2. Wasn't really liking the deck I made there, but any game I started with Sid 2 in hand, I was like, okay, that's pretty much a winning game. So I came up with an idea to try to get Sid 2 out on turn 1 no matter what. And that allowed a lot of opportunities for color fixing, letting me be 4 color.
Yeah, I saw you fetching for everything you needed on the fly for sure.
Yeah, so I've tried out Astrologian and Thornton back and forth a little bit. Thornton kind of tested better, and whenever I bursted him, obviously it was like pretty much a game-winning burst, because there's so much gas you can draw from the deck for whatever situation you need. So Thornton kind of won out, and but what I find really exciting about this deck is people will take it and they'll try many different things with Sid 2. Like this was probably a 20th version going into the tournament. Just many different packages to try when you have so many color options. Sid 2, Chaos, Shantoto. But the Shantoto splash is what really catches people off guard. One Earth Evoker and Chaos to be able to cast the Shantoto. And Sid 2 is your turn 1 goal anyways, so once you have him online, you can Shantoto at any time for cheaper, because you can have 3 backups out or 4 backups out, play Shantoto for with only discarding the Evoker that you found off Sid 2.
It's just pretty wild how you wound up piling the whole thing.
Yeah. So the FF2 package really worked out once I brought it back into what it is now with the Sid 2 and everything. The Thornton is kind of what makes it work as well. It's not needed every single game, but I will mulligan for either a Thornton or a Sid 2, or keep with either of those cards in hand, and it takes a while to convince people the power of a turn 1 Thornton into turn 1 Sid 2. So that's a lot of resources you're pitching. You discard your entire hand to play a Thornton Sid 2 on turn 1. Why it's worth it is because turn 2, you get to use Sid 2, put in a blue Evoker. You don't even need to look at the 2 cards you draw. Then turn 3, you start with 4 cards in your hand and 4 CP worth of backups, because you have 2 and a Sid 2. So 4 CP resources with 4 cards in hand, keeping in mind that Sid 2 is going to help you for the rest of the game, is pretty good advantage.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely sounds like, especially when you put it in perspective on how your ideal turn 1, turn 2 plays are going to go pan out. You just build your hand up pretty quick, knowing that you're just going to let it coast and just sit back and just draw another 2.
Right. Yeah. I mean, very best turn one that the deck has is simply just Sid 2 Chaos. You can play any evoker you search for off of the Chaos and continue to ramp easily.
Then one question I had for you was, obviously Turbo Ice was a big deck going into the tournament. Did you like ever worry about that deck at all? Like, did you feel like your build was just superior to that, and you didn't have to worry about it? Like, how'd you kind of feel about that matchup?
It's definitely something I prepared for, and the deck can perform against it. I wish I could have showcased at least better games against Jordan in the finals using my deck, because the deck got there, and it made me proud during the tournament. And unfortunately, the Turbo Ice shut it down in the finals. But the deck can beat it. It's got a lot of strong cards against it. Simply, my turn 1 plays were not there in the final matches, unfortunately. So the deck just wasn't doing what it was supposed to do in the matches where it really has to perform exactly how it's supposed to perform. So like I need that turn 1 Sid 2 against Ice that really creates the advantage that I lose with the turbo discard. It puts cards back into my hands, giving me resources to make some of the bigger plays. But it's got a lot of powerful cards against Turbo Ice through Leon, who they don't really have any 2 characters to pull them into their control, I don't believe. Just the Viking Layla package is really strong against Turbo Ice. Vivi is really strong, and then Shadow Lord is kind of a game-winning card if you can get there.
Yeah. And then another question I had for you.
Search for him.
Oh yeah. Yo, sorry for cutting you off there. One question I had was, me and Adam Lane were talking a lot about the Final Fantasy 2 deck, because we were, as soon as I saw that list after you topped the day 1, like I saw that, I was like, holy crap, what is this? I have to build this right now. And I made the list and I started playing with, and the Leon in the deck. Now, obviously, no one else is playing Final Fantasy 2, so you don't really have to worry too much about the Leon switching sides so much. But now that you've topped this event, do you feel like if people start playing this deck more, you're going to have to take that card out? And if you do, like, what would you put in instead? Because it is like a 1 drop 9K with Maria out, right?
Right, yeah. That's what it's in there for. He was originally a 3 of, and I cut him down to a 2 of for that reason. Is I never wanted to see more than one of them in hand, and he wasn't played against every single matchup. So oftentimes he's pitched for resources for some of the stronger cards. You always need cards to be able to pitch for all these high costs like Phoenix and Diabolos and whatnot. So having him there as a 2 of, as just potentially a 1-drop 9K against decks that don't run those 2s is strong enough, I feel.
If Final Fantasy 2 winds up being a more popular deck, I mean, what are you going to take Leon out for? Because you can't have him in there if everybody's playing this. This becomes like the new turbo discard that you can at least count 1 or 2 people in your LGS playing it. You're going to take Leon out. What are you taking him out for?
Right, yeah.
Or do you leave him in there and just wing it?
Honestly, I think I leave him in there because of how strong he is against some of the other matchups. Him as a 2 of is not that hindering if you're playing against another FF2 deck. You just don't play him. But against Mono Lightning and Mono Ice, where there's not really any 2 characters, and those are definitely both big decks in the meta, he's definitely a really clutch play. Just the value of bringing Leon, Guy, and Furion out on the same turn for like 6 CP.
Yeah,
very strong.
I did that a lot when I was testing the deck in locals, and it's definitely like a game changer. Like, it's really hard to come back from after that's happened.
Now, the only other thing that I did want to ask you, because I mean, people are going from casual and starting to get into competitive play, and then some people who are already in competitive play are not getting the results that they need. And I mean, your track record speaks for itself. I mean, you've won your Gen Con qualification, you've made it to Worlds. What do you do to prepare yourself for an event, and how do you keep yourself from getting anxious or being control of what your plays need to be, and having the mental clarity throughout going through it all? Because I mean, 2 hours of sleep, you're kind of crazy. I definitely wouldn't be able to do it on 2 hours of sleep.
Oh yeah, there's basically have insomnia, so whenever I get a crappy night like that, it's always hard to compete. And some of my plays that day definitely showed that. Fortunately, I got better sleep for Sunday, but I'm basically a constant deck brewer, which kind of really helps me figure out the meta of the game before it gets started, which is kind of where this came from. This deck, I found out that I was competing really well against the other decks I was already making, such as the Ice Water. That matchup is a really grindy one. Like, Kimoto's matches went very long for 3 games. We went to time in game 3, unfortunately, but when you have 2 decks like that are both out for the long game, that have multiple board clears in them, it's going to happen if it doesn't end in 2 games, most likely. But yeah, I'm constantly deck brewing, preparing myself for the meta, testing on Octagon. There's many decks where I test maybe 3 times before calling it scrapping or calling it scrap, or just reworking it to fit some of the meta decks, but always defaulting to testing against like the popular meta decks right now, which are Mono Ice, Mono Lightning, and like Wind Earth were the 3 big ones I was testing against early on, since those were what were popular in Opus 5, and definitely didn't go away. There's more support that came out for those decks this Opus as well.
Now, one last thing before you pretty much start wrapping things up here at this point. I mean, when it comes to, you say you're a constant brewer, you're always trying to crack the meta before everyone is aware of what the meta is, pretty much. Where do you start when you have, like, where did this Final Fantasy 2 deck, what made you, well, you said you started on Sid 2, that's what you wanted to kind of base the deck around, or what really made you want to build this, or what makes you want to build any other deck? I mean, what's your focus? Do you always go for the forwards first? Is it a backup? Is it a summon? I mean, what makes you want to start putting things together?
Yeah, and this, like I said, it was Sid 2. Like, I realized how much value that card gave me, and that pretty much put the deck together on its own, this deck anyways. People kind of questioned the Phoenix and everything early on, like, what's it really do for you? And Diabolos is obviously just always kind of been a good card and always been meta as of lately. But Sid 2 being able to make those cards instantly more value, or just because you can play those 1-drop backups as well and just easily ramp up to 5 backups and constantly make good plays every single turn with this deck. So Sid 2 with this deck anyways allowed me to play a lot of powerful cards. I originally had Nidhogg in here, but took him out for the competitive scene. He was very good. I had a lot of fun playing him, and people might try him out in this deck. I would definitely recommend doing so if you like that card.
What you
I took
substitute
him
him
out to
with?
be a little less edgy. I already had a lot of power with Phoenix and Shantoto and Diabolos, so.
What do you get replaced with?
Just one of the other dark cards. Shadow Lord and Emperor have kind of been rotating. So originally it was Emperor, Camelot, and Nidhogg, and then I took out the Emperor for Shadow Lord, and then ended up taking out Nidhogg for the Emperor again.
Got it.
Shadow
Yeah,
Lord,
Emperor is definitely a
very
blowout
good
when you.
in the current meta.
Yeah.
Against Ions and Ice mostly. But the other thing Shadow Lord does for this deck is activates the double kill mode with Diabolos very easily. You can select both the opponent's forwards and use the 2,000 damage from your Shadow Lord to break the 4 or less option. So it's a really nice extra synergy that card offers.
It's definitely good 2 for 1 for only 5 costs. That's pretty good setup. But I think that pretty much wrap things up. Is there anything you want to let anybody else that's going to be listening or watching?
No, I don't think so. Try out the deck if you'd like. I definitely am happy that I did well with it in Gen Con. I wanted to show people that this game is not all about monocolor decks. That was basically my goal for running this deck at Gen Con. I'm not always the person who's trying to net deck and like play the best deck. And this was a really fun one to play. It really let people show like my creative build side, kind of showcase that at a tournament. So since I'm always brewing and I got to play a really fun deck at a fun tournament, it was really a highlight for my Final Fantasy experiences.
I mean,
So
as
I
it
hope
should,
you
as
try
it
it
should.
out, and I encourage people to play Sid 2 and try many other color combinations. Maybe there's something I haven't tried yet that also competes at the same level. But yeah, just encouraging people to basically play big cards that they have fun playing, and like let Sid 2 carry the resources to let them do so. So that card definitely carries his deck to
MVP of the deck.
a top tier level, I feel. So I'm excited to see what people do with it.
All right, that pretty much wrap things up, guys. We'll be doing these interviews. It may be probably once a week here. And catch you guys till next time. Have a good one.